Dawn breaks over the rugged landscape as a small group of humans emerges from the mouth of a limestone cave. Their day has already begun, some scanning the horizon for plant resources, others gathering kindling for the fire that never fully dies out. But what exactly fill the hours of our Paleolithic women, the popular image of women solely as passive gatherers, dependent on male hunters, hardly captures the complexity of their daily existence. So how did they spend their waking hours when survival was a full-time occupation? When we speak of prehistoric women, we're referring to humans who lived during the Paleolithic period spanning from approximately 6 million years ago to about 12,000 years ago. This represents over 99% of human history, a time before agriculture, before cities, before written language. Yet this wasn't a static period. Massive innovations in technology, social organization, and artistic expression occurred throughout the Paleolithic. Our understanding of daily life during this era comes from multiple lines of evidence. Archaeological sites preserve stone tools, hearths, food remains, and occasionally more perishable items. Like textiles or wooden implements, cave art and portable artifacts provide glimpses into their symbolic world. Ethnographic studies of recent hunter-gatherer societies offer additional insights, though we must be cautious about direct comparisons across such vast time spans. The Paleolithic wasn't a monolithic experience. It varied dramatically by region, climate, and time period. Early Homo habilis women living in Africa 2 million years ago had a profoundly different daily experience than Cro-Magnon women painting the caves of France 20,000 years ago. Climate was perhaps the most significant factor determining daily routines during the Ice Ages, when much of Northern Europe and Asia was covered in glaciers. Survival demanded different strategies than in warmer periods or regions. Groups living near coasts or rivers developed fishing technologies, while those in forests or grasslands focused on different prey and plant resources. What unites all Paleolithic peoples is their lifestyle as hunter-gatherers, acquiring food through a combination of hunting animals and gathering wild plants. So let's step back in time and examine what filled the hours, days, and seasons of our Paleolithic ancestors, particularly focusing on the crucial roles of women. The Paleolithic day for women began with the rising sun. Unlike our artificial lighting and rigid schedules, these early humans followed natural rhythms of light and dark, adjusting to seasonal variations. Morning typically began with rekindling the previous night's fire. Archaeological evidence from sites like Terra Amata in France, dated to 380,000 years ago, shows carefully maintained hearths, critical for warmth, light, protection from predators, and cooking. Starting a fire from scratch was challenging. Most groups maintained embers or slow-burning materials. Overnight mornings were likely devoted to essential tasks requiring daylight. The band would assess immediate needs. Was food low? Did tools need repair? Were there signs of edible plants or small game? Nearby water collection was a daily necessity, typically from nearby streams or springs carried in containers made from animal blads, woven baskets, or eventually pottery, rather than rigid schedules. Paleolithic life followed a pattern of immediate return activities and delayed return planning, preparing for future challenges. Evidence from sites like Gisher Ben Yaakov in Israel from nearly 800,000 years ago shows remarkable knowledge of seasonal plant cycles, suggesting sophisticated planning often attributed to women's deep botanical understanding. The day's main activities varied by season and immediate needs, but food acquisition dominated, while traditional views often confined women to gathering plant foods. Recent archaeological evidence and re-evaluations of existing sites increasingly challenge this. Women actively participated in hunting smaller animals, trapping, and even large game hunting, especially as part of communal drives. Studies of skeletal remains show robust female skeletons, indicating physical activity comparable to males. Midday might include food preparation, tool maintenance, or rest during intense heat. As the day progressed, gatherers returned with plant foods, and when successful hunters with game as daylight waned, the community gathered around the fire. This evening time likely included storytelling, planning for the next day's foraging or hunting, and crucial, social bonding, where women often played central roles in transmitting knowledge and maintaining social cohesion. Obtaining food was the primary occupation of Paleolithic peoples, while large animal hunting required considerable skill and coordination, often involving both sexes. Plant gathering was the more reliable and consistently productive food source, predominantly led by women. Archaeological evidence shows Paleolithic people consumed a wide variety of plant foods, tubers, fruits, nuts, seeds, and leafy greens. Studies of dental calculus from Paleolithic teeth revealed traces of numerous plant species, including various medicinal plants. This deep botanical knowledge, crucial for identifying edible and medicinal flora, was likely held and transmitted primarily by women. Plant gathering required extensive knowledge of growth cycles, habitats, and processing techniques. This knowledge was likely passed down through generations, creating sophisticated ecological understanding. The Paleolithic site at Doe, Coeur in Illinois, dated to approximately 9,000 years ago, shows evidence of fishing using nets and hooks crafted from bone, an activity likely shared by men and women. Seasonal variation dictated rhythms of food. Acquisition spring might focus on gathering eggs and fresh greens, summer on berries and hunting young animals, autumn on nuts and preparing for winter, while winter often relied more heavily on stored foods and hunting. Food storage technologies were limited but crucial. Some groups dried meat to create early forms of jerky underground storage. Pits preserved certain foods in cooler tars and in colder regions. Freezing provided natural preservation. The Paleolithic diet was remarkably diverse, much more so than early agricultural diets that followed analysis of bones. From Paleolithic humans shows generally good nutrition, with fewer deficiencies than their agricultural descendants. One crucial innovation was cooking. While the exact timing is debated, control of fire for cooking dates to at least 400,000 years ago, with some evidence suggesting much earlier origins. Cooking made many foods more digestible, releasing more calories and neutralizing natural toxins in some plants. Women were almost certainly the primary innovators and practitioners of cooking, transforming raw ingredients into more nutritious meals. Paleolithic women spent considerable time manufacturing and maintaining tools. Tool-making wasn't occasional, but constant. Stone tools dulled with use and required regular resharpening or replacement. A skilled knapper could produce a functional cutting edge in minutes, but more complex tools required hours of careful work. The evolution of stone tool technology reveals increasing sophistication. The earliest old tools were simple stone cobbles with flakes removed to create a crude cutting edge. By 76 million years ago, a hand axes demonstrate careful, bifacial flaking and symmetrical design. The Middle Paleolithic introduced the levois technique, allowing more control over the size and shape of stone flakes. The Upper Paleolithic, beginning around 50,000 to 40,000 years ago, saw an explosion of specialized tools: burins for engraving, scrapers for high preparation, awls for puncturing, and projectile points for hunting. These weren't made by trial and error, but reflected sophisticated understanding of stone mechanics and intended functions. Women were skilled tool makers and users, particularly for tasks related to food processing, hide preparation, and crafting clothing and containers. Tool materials extended beyond stone. Wood was undoubtedly the most common material, though it rarely preserves in archaeological sites. Remarkable exceptions include wooden spears and a yew-wood spear tip from Clactamungi. These show careful shaping with the wood's natural properties considered in the design. Bone, antler, and ivory became increasingly important in the Upper Paleolithic. These materials could be carved into fish hooks, needles, harpoons, and decorative items. Antler was particularly valued for its combination of strength and flexibility. Food processing tools included grinding stones for seeds, pounding tools for tough plant foods, and specialized cutting implements for butchery. Experiments show that stone tools could efficiently butcher even large animals like elephants. Though the process was time-consuming, containers were essential technology. Early humans likely used natural containers like gourds, shells, or animal bladders. By the Upper Paleolithic, evidence suggests the use of woven baskets and sewn hide bags, crafts often attributed to women's ingenuity. The earliest pottery appears by around 20,000 years ago in China. A revolutionary technology for cooking and storage, likely developed by women. Clothing technology evolved with climatic challenges during colder periods. Hide preparation was essential. Stone scrapers removed fat and tissue from hides, while bone awls and needles allowed for sewing, creating warm and protective garments. This intricate work, vital for survival in harsh climates, was a domain where women excelled. Where did Paleolithic women actually live? Despite the caveman stereotype, caves were just one housing option among many natural shelters. Like caves and rock overhangs were indeed used when available, especially in regions with harsh weather. Famous cave sites like Lusco or Alamera preserve evidence of extensive occupation. However, caves suitable for habitation were relatively rare, and evidence suggests they were often used seasonally, rather than year-round. The archaeological record reveals various constructed shelters. At Terrara Ameda in France, archaeologists found traces of oval huts approximately 8 to 15 meters long, supported by wooden posts. At Marurik in Ukraine, 15,000 years ago, Mammoth bones were arranged in circular patterns to create dwelling foundations, likely covered with hides. Inside these shelters, space was organized for different activities. Hearths typically formed the central focus with evidence of sleeping areas, tool-making, spaces, and food processing zones. Arranged around them, home maintenance required ongoing work. Fire needed constant attention. Shelters required repair after weather damage, and living areas needed periodic cleaning at some sites. Archaeologists have identified distinct dumping areas where refuse was deposited away from living spaces. Child rearing was deeply integrated into daily life. Unlike modern society's age segregation, Paleolithic children likely observed and participated in adult activities from an early age, learning essential skills from their mothers and other women in the community. Personal hygiene is harder to trace archaeologically, but ethnographic studies of hunter-gatherers suggest regular practices, including dental cleaning with fibrous plants and bathing and available water sources. Home life also included care for ill or injured individuals. Several Paleolithic skeletons show evidence of healed serious injuries or long-term disabilities, indicating community support for those unable to contribute fully to subsistence activities, a role often taken on by women who provided care and comfort. Contrary to popular portrayals of primitive existence, Paleolithic social life was rich and complex. The basic social unit was the band, typically 20 to 30 individuals, consisting of several related families. These bands weren't isolated. Archaeological evidence shows regular interaction between groups. Exotic materials, found far from their sources, indicate trade networks spanning hundreds of miles. Social bonds were maintained through various activities. Sharing food was fundamental, creating reciprocal obligations. Evidence from sites like Doli Vistanis, 29,000 years ago, shows large hearths capable of cooking enough food for substantial gatherings, suggesting communal feasting events where women played key roles in preparation and distribution. Art played a crucial role in Paleolithic social life. The earliest definitively human art includes ochre processing at Blombos Cave in South Africa almost 100,000 years ago, where women's involvement in preparing pigments for body adornment and symbolic expression is increasingly recognized by the Upper Paleolithic. We see spectacular cave paintings, portable figurines, and musical instruments. Music is ephemeral, but surviving instruments offer tantalizing glimpses. Bone flutes dating to 43,000 years ago have been found in Germany. With careful reconstruction they produce notes in recognizable scales paired with drums made from stretched tides or hollowed logs, which rarely preserve these, suggest sophisticated musical traditions. Women likely contributed significantly to these artistic and musical expressions, using them in rituals and social gatherings. Evidence for medicine and healing practices comes from plant residues with medicinal properties found in dental calculus, suggesting that women, through their deep knowledge of plants, were likely the primary healers and caregivers. In these societies, some shamanic practices may be reflected in the anthropic images and cave art. Possibly depicting transformed states of consciousness, women were often central figures in spiritual and ritualistic practices, acting as shamans or custodians of sacred knowledge. Conflict existed but wasn't constant. While some Paleolithic skeletons show violence-related injuries, they are relatively rare compared to later periods. Resource abundance, relative to population, likely reduced competition in many regions. The Paleolithic lifestyle represents the longest and most successful human adaptation, sustaining our species through dramatic climate changes and enabling global colonization. What can we learn from this enduring way of life, particularly from the lens of women's contributions? First, Paleolithic women alongside men were remarkably skilled. Environmental managers rather than passive victims of their environment, they actively shaped landscapes through selective gathering, plant management, and even controlled burning archaeological evidence. From Australia shows Aboriginal fire management dating back 65,000 years, creating mosaic landscapes that enhance biodiversity, a practice often attributed to women's understanding of ecosystems. Second, Paleolithic lifeways demanded extraordinary knowledge, breadth. Each individual needed a working understanding of hundreds of plant and animal species, geological resources, weather patterns, tool manufacturer, and social dynamics. This generalist knowledge contrasts sharply with our modern specialization. Women were crucial repositories and transmitters of this knowledge, especially concerning plants, medicines, and child rearing. Third, their technologies were sophisticated adaptations to environmental challenges, while simple in appearance compared to modern equivalents. Paleolithic tools represented elegant solutions developed through generations of refinement. The principles behind many modern tools were established during this period, often by the innovative hands of women who crafted baskets, nets, and clothing. Perhaps most significantly, the Paleolithic period saw the emergence of symbolic expression, abstract thinking, and cultural complexity that defines humanity. The Paleolithic wasn't a primitive prelude to civilization, but a highly successful and sustainable adaptation for over 99 of human history. This lifestyle maintained population balance with resources and supported rich cultural traditions, achievements worth considering, as we face our own environmental challenges. So what did prehistoric women actually do all day? They engaged in a complex balance of immediate needs and long-term planning. They manufactured and maintained essential technologies. They acquired, processed, and shared food. They created and repaired shelters. They taught their children practical and cultural knowledge. They developed art, music, and symbolic systems. They maintained social bonds within and between groups. They adapted to environmental challenges through innovation and mobility. When we look at the archaeological record, with fresh eyes we see not primitive ancestors, but innovative humans, women who were skilled technologists, knowledgeable botanists, innovative artists, and cooperative community members, facing environmental challenges with creativity and resilience. Their solutions, from sophisticated gathering technologies to symbolic art, laid the foundations for all subsequent human achievements. The next time you imagine a caveman, consider not just a fur-clad brute, but an equally vital skilled technologist, a knowledgeable botanist, an innovative artist, and a cooperative community member, all embodied in the remarkably adaptable prehistoric